Greetings, listeners, and welcome to The Spiritual Experience, a show where we share stories of life, love, and redemption for all of humanity on Earth. So sit back and enjoy. Try to identify with the speakers and not compare. Don't forget to subscribe on all podcast platforms. I'm your host, Jay Lewis, and here we go. Hey, how is everybody? All right, welcome back, Spiritual Experience. I'm your host, Jay Lewis. You know who I am by now already if you're just introducing yourself to us. You can go back and look at the archives. We have previous episodes where I go through different periods of my life and that kind of stuff when I'm not sitting down with anybody. And this is going to be one of those. I was thinking about it today on my way into work. I was dropping my kid off at school, and I was listening, to a podcast this morning, and they were just going crazy on, all of this insanity. To me, it's insanity, and to other people, I guess maybe it's just regular life. I don't know, but it was basically just talking about, how there are, that they don't want to teach, it's basically about racism and critical race theory, and they don't want to teach that in schools and all of this shit. And honestly, it was angering me listening to what people were describing as, they didn't want, I guess, basically it was the show is This American Life, and it's a great show, and I listen to it every week. It's probably my favorite podcast. One of them, that, Jocko, Rogan, everything. Oh, Lex Friedman. Oh my God, I heard Fauci has been trying to lobby to get on Lex's show. That must be crazy. Jesus, if he ever makes it on there. But Lex is an incredible guy. I suggest everybody listen to that show. Either way, so it was just like doom and gloom, man. It was doom and gloom, and it was sad, and it was basically they were talking about how these white ladies, most of them, it was just white parents. Maybe it was only the women who had the balls enough to talk to the reporter, but. In a lot of states, they don't want to teach kids about, how racist the history of this country is. And to be honest with you, it's a little bit crazy why they even would think that. It's part of history. It's part of humanity. I was talking with my other boy about it. We were just talking about it, very kind of touch and go. But I'm just like, dude, when I think about atrocities, he was talking about that there was this museum down in D.C. or whatever, and wherever it is. I know that they have this wax museum. I think it's in Philadelphia about the slave trade and that stuff, and it's very jarring. And even when I watched Quentin Tarantino's movie, The Django Unchained, that was that was wild, the way that they depicted the treatment of slaves. And I got to be honest, I don't even look at it from a race standpoint. I look at it from a humanity. This is human history. This is not just, white people history. This is human history. And then there were people, like I said, these places in Texas and these other people think about Texas a lot of times. Maybe now they think about Austin or these other what do they call it, the blueberry and the tomato soup. But listen, man, there's still bad people everywhere. I guess I don't want to call them bad. I just kind of call them lost. Either way, so they didn't want this type of information getting to their children in school because they were scared that it was going to make the little white children feel bad about themselves. And I understand that. Because if you're a human being, learning about how other humans have been shitty to each other, regardless of the race or color or whatever, yeah, you should feel bad. You should feel empathy. But I also think that it's okay to feel that way, but also you don't have to own that. You don't, unless you're behaving like that now. Yeah, you don't have to own that. So I don't feel bad about having white skin. I just try to be a good person. So I thought it was funny because like my friend was just like, well, he's like very, we're different in a lot of ways, and that's why we're great friends. He's probably, I would call him one of my closest friends, my best friend. I would call him one of those. And we're different in a lot of ways, but we go back and forth with each other, and we sometimes yell at each other, and that's okay. But he was like, oh, what do you think? Kids have to be taught, no, this is not you, that this is just your ancestors, and not to feel bad. I was like, absolutely. Little kids have to be told that. If they're a little human being and they'll feel sad, and you say, listen, you have every right to feel sad, and it's a sad situation that you're learning about, that you didn't know about, and that's what happens. And then with that sadness, you don't have to feel shame. You don't have to feel shame. You can just feel sadness. And whatever, I'm not an educator, so what the hell do I know? But that's how I would teach my kids. I'd be like, listen, man, like, it is very true. All of that stuff. And it doesn't have to be, white against black in those terms. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like that. It could just be, hey, listen, man, that stuff is going on all over the planet. Different cultures are doing it to each other. And this is not a big thing about whataboutism and all of that stuff. Well, what about this and what about that? And what about the different tribes in Africa? And some of the slaves were sold here, and all of these other things. It just sounds like when like a turd is spiraling down the toilet, like you're just like watching it. Like, is this thing gonna go away? That's what I feel when I hear those stupid excuses. Everything can be bad. Everything can be bad. So either way, but what I thought was funny was that, and maybe this is selective journalism, because This American Life is run by NPR, and they're very big on, or just the show itself is really big about, they're super left-leaning show. And, they're very big about giving everybody a voice and all of these other things. And with like a twist of maybe they feel guilty. I don't know. Maybe they feel their white guilt. They're obviously not, some of them are not, they're not going to give up their paycheck for somebody else to say, hey, listen, you're an East Indian woman. Why don't you take my job because I'm this white man because I feel so guilty? Not all of them feel that guilty. But I don't want to go on a tangent, but either way. So what I found interesting was that like, this the story of these maybe super conservative white women, and you can hear the entitlement in their voice when they're speaking to the reporter. But these are the same type of people who are complaining that people on the left are too sensitive. Right? Like they're the same ones. They're like, they're complaining about political correctness and the left is too sensitive. and all of this other shit. But they themselves, when all of a sudden now they're being all sensitive. You know, I was like, hey, man, I thought you didn't believe in that stuff. I just find it freaking exhausting, to be honest, just listening to that kind of, that kind of, I don't want to say rhetoric because that's such a stupid word, but it just sounds like diarrhea. That's what it sounds like. Those are the same. They're those. I'm being like them. Those are, you know, I hear many times they're part of that group that says, I don't see color. And I do. And I think you should see color. And I think you should see differences. And I think it should be okay. And it should be okay to ask questions about other people's differences. This shouldn't be offensive. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say offensive, but if you come from a place like literally I don't know, and I have this question, now nobody can ask anything, right? Nobody can ask anything. Nobody could say anything. It's so crazy. It's so sad. And what it did, it motivated me. It's like, I don't even want to hear any more of this. And I listened to the whole show because I just wanted to. I'm always down to hear what other people are thinking, and other people are, my cousin's texting me, the market's crashing. No shit. Thanks, Joe Biden. Thank you. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I'm always interested in hearing all different perspectives. And sometimes it's hard to stomach, but, you know, whatever. So I force myself to listen to it, to come, you know, to get into that space where maybe I can see humanity in them. And the truth is, like, maybe they're just scared. What the hell do I know? Or maybe they're legit ignorant. Or maybe, I was making this joke. I said, maybe they're scared little Johnny's going to be in school and hear about slurs and racial terms and all this other stuff, and then raise his hand because he's in kindergarten and be like, my mammy and my uncle, they say those words all the time. Like, maybe they're going to figure out that some people in their family or people that they're close to are in that gene pool of shit. You know, what do I know? But either way, it just all stems from fear, right? So what did I do to counterbalance that? I drove my kid to school. And, you know, when I drive them, typically we put on some music and they play a song, then I play a song, then they play a song, then I play a song. And I don't even have to pretend to like some of their music. I just do. And I always say, oh, my God, little boo, who's this? Who's this? And I'll forget everybody's names. But it sounds nice. And it also, it gives me like a little bit of a litmus test on what kind of mood they're in. You know, if they're playing drippy stuff, then it'll be drippy. If they're not, then it'll be happy. And it's nice. So I'm kind of, it's a good exercise. I just came up with it, you know, recently. Sorry, I'm like scratching my nose. But either way, so what I kept doing was, because I was thinking I had all this other stuff in my brain that this is the world today and this is the way that some of these kids are being, this is the environment that they're being raised in. I said, what was it like for me? You know, so what I did was, for my songs, I just started playing like these 80s pop songs and 80s rock songs, and they always make me feel good. Like I had a good childhood. You know, they always make me feel good. And and it's funny because, you know, my kid, they like some of the songs. And you know, pop music is pop music. You know, maybe now it's sounds a little bit different, but, you know, yeah, it was good. So it was nice. And I was thinking about, like, man, when I was a kid, I didn't have any of those fears that's going on right now. How far we've tumbled down the rabbit hole of divisiveness and we're going backwards in some ways, like in humanity, right? And Lex was saying this the other day on his show where, even now with the corona, like people are just looking at other humans as potential virus carriers and not humans. And that's like so sad. It's just so sad. Like, if you're that scared and you protect yourself, or maybe you stay in the house and don't come outside if you're going to look at other people like a huge threat to you like that, it makes me angry when I hear all that judgment. It really does. So I wanted to go back to my youth, and then I was thinking about that. In the 80s, I was born in 1979, Nyack Hospital, Rockland County, grew up in Spring Valley, 10977, back in the day when it was area code 914, not 845. And I was fortunate enough, and I didn't know at that point until I got older, but I was fortunate enough that I had two parents, and we grew up very extra regular. We had a yard, a small high ranch house, a couple of cars in the driveway. My mom, both my parents worked, and it was everything. It was just a different time. Maybe I didn't know. Obviously, I didn't know what I know now, but I was thinking as I'm listening to these songs, like how I would spend what seemed like hours, watching television. I would watch. My favorite show was What's Happening. That was like the best show. I love that show. What's Happening? Different Strokes was cool. I didn't love it. I don't know why I didn't love it, but What's Happening, I loved it. I loved Dwayne. Like, that was funny. Like, I loved Dwayne, Raj, and I didn't really watch The Cosby Show. I watched it a little bit, but, I'd watch, I watched television. There was different stuff on TV. I watched a lot of boxing. Oh, my God. When I was a kid, there was boxing on, like, Tuesday nights and Friday nights on regular TV. I watched, and I loved that. My dad loved it. He did. He would watch the fights with me. My dad is a perpetual ironer. Like, he would just iron clothes. My dad's so weird. He would iron clothes and smoke cigarettes at the same time. And in my mind, I'm thinking about that now. I don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but I smoke cigars. I smoke a few a week. I love it. Hate on if you want, but I love it, right? And I can't imagine. I'm like, dude, so you're ironing clothes, and he would like send me to school with the freaking creases in my pants and shit. And I know he just wanted me to be clean and look fresh. Like, dude, we didn't have a lot of money at all, but man, we were clean. Like, my white T-shirts was like white. And yeah, so there's that. So we were clean. Either way, so I'd be watching boxing with him, and he'd be ironing, smoking cigarettes. I'm like, wow, did I go to school smelling like fabric softener and Winston's? My dad would smoke Winston's, man. It can't be any more white than that, right? I'm sure those mamas down in Texas about the other shit I was talking about, they're probably proud, like, yeah, Winston's. Those are tough-ass cigarettes. My dad he's a tough guy. Well, he was a tough guy either way. So we'd be watching this stuff, and, and I had, I had an older sister. She's no longer with us in the physical, but she's definitely with us in the spirit and in the heart. But so I'd be watching, cartoons and stuff with my dad and boxing. We'd watch, he was a huge fan of like Indiana Jones when that stuff would come on. Eventually we got a VCR, but we were like always very late. Like, I got the VCR when the DVDs came out, and that's okay. But I would watch like these movies with my sister. All of those those John Hughes movies. Now that I know who he is, or whatever, but yeah, like The Breakfast Club, 16 Candles, and yeah, I liked the Pickup Artist. That was good. I loved Robert Downey. Oh man, Less Than Zero, forget it. Less Than Zero was great. You know, and that was it. But and then also, I always have to give a shout out, a fat shout out to Kiefer Sutherland in The Lost Boys. Lord. Those were vampires. Yeah. Either way. So all that stuff, the Goonies, everything, like that's kind of how I grew up, you know? I grew up, my life was like that. My life was like that. We'd go outside, we'd play outside in the yard. Like I told you, my dad would have my friends come over and we'd be boxing in the yard. I guess, yeah, we'd be boxing in the yard, man. Shout out Mike Zamir. He used to hate coming to my house. We'd box in the basement and box outside. You know, my best friend. Everybody was my best friend when I was a kid. And even now, I'm like everybody's my best friend now. It's just nice. It's nice to be that kid. But everybody was my best friend. So we had this other friend, my other homie, Chris, little Chris Branch. His parents were from St. Kitts. And he used to come over and we used to box and he used to beat the shit out of me all the time. He had an older brother, Victor. Well, me and Chris, we'd go back. Listen, if we fought 6 times, DeBra was winning 2 times. He won 4 times. Older brother, Victor, little Die. And it was cool. And I was just like exposed, you know, even when I would sleep over their house. My parents would never not let me sleep over a lot of people's houses. They would let me, you know, maybe that's the Puerto Rican like from my mom. Right? Like Spanish people are not allowed to sleep outside the house. But I used to sleep at Mike Zamir's house. I used to sleep at Chris's house. And Zamir's parents were Israeli. Chris's parents were from St. Kitts. So we'd wake up in the morning. We'd have to go to church. They'd be playing like calypso music in the morning. Every Friday we would get McDonald's at Chris's house. His parents worked super freaking hard, man. His mom was a nurse. R.I.P. and his dad, R.I.P. Who I love, Uncle Al. He was, he's a dentist. He was a dentist, and they were so cool. I mean, like you were talking about grace and everything. Like they were so cool, man. Like my dad used to come pick me up from their house, and my dad would smoke cigarettes in their kitchen, and they didn't smoke, and they wouldn't even say anything to my dad. They would just let him do it. I was just like, what is up with that? You know, and I used to get mad, like, Pop, you know they don't smoke. What the hell are you smoking in their house for? And he's like, they don't care. Like, maybe they didn't. You know what? Maybe they didn't. But, like, you know, we grew up, that's how we grew up, outside. My parents used to kick our ass. Their parents used to kick their ass. You know, when you did something wrong, you got a whipping. We used to get smacked around in my house. You know, I wouldn't say smacked around. Yeah, smacked around, man. They would smack you. If you didn't finish your food, man, you got fucked up. They would beat you up. You didn't finish your food. You know, my dad used to hit us with this towel. He had towels in the kitchen, man, like kitchen towels, and he used to do like that rat tail thing. It's all on your legs everywhere, man. You got to finish your food. But, yeah, it was strict. It was strict, but it was, by today's standards, that's strict. Now, forget it. You know, I dead name one of my kids, it's over. You know, forget it. Either way. So, but, you know, we'd be outside all the time. And I had like this I had these experiences that it was all that I knew. So, in my neighborhood where I grew up, it was like a regular middle-class neighborhood. Just on my block. Well, my neighborhood was very mixed or whatever, but my block, before I was allowed to leave the block, it was Jewish kids, middle-class Jews, who I love. I was a Pakistani family. Their son Zia was my best friend, and I love them dearly. There's Jamaican family, the Henrys. There was another Spanish family, a bunch of Italian families. that were on the street too. So which was funny because that's where I get like some of them, you get some of your Ginzo mannerisms from some of them, which is funny. I know there was one of them that like, yeah, he was a racist a little bit. Not that I knew personally, but that I heard peripherally. That, yeah, he didn't like black people. And then his daughter ended up with a black dude, and they ended up living in their house. I don't want to say their last name, but it's like super Italian. And it's funny. That's how life works. And there was also, oddly enough, there was also a crack house on our street. So it was pretty interesting. And it became a crack house. And they were a mixed family. I didn't know them that well because they were older than me. I was like the little kid sitting on the curb and everybody else was playing kickball. And then I would be able to play kickball with them. All the kids in my neighborhood were like maybe 10 years older than me. Some of them 5 years older than me. It was like the Goonies, basically. It was like the Goonies. But either way, so it was this mixed family, like white and black. And this is like in the 80s. So the crack epidemic was everywhere. It was that. And both their kids started smoking crack. And the parents just left them the house. So the kids had the house and they were burning rocks, man. I remember I was like 10 years old or something. And they had like a party and somebody got shot and killed at the party. I remember that. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Either way, so I had this like, I had this John Hughes kind of like life in that sense where it was just extra regular. And I remember there was this other kid. What was this? I don't know. I think his name was Jeff. And yeah, either way. So he this was back when there wasn't like obviously internet. So we would pass around like ripped out pages of Playboy to look at like dirty pictures, like naked women. Like we'd have them like crumbled up behind a tree somewhere. And we'd go and we'd look at them. I'm like, wow, that's what that looks like. That's not my mom, which is funny. It was that kind of stuff. And, it was all of that. I remember there were these kids that, there were kids that lived next door to us, and they were handicapped. And just like physically, like when they walked with this crazy limp. I don't know the name of the disease, so please nobody go on Twitter and bash me. But I don't know what it is. But they walk with this limp or whatever. And the two brothers had it. Anyway, one of the brothers was, with another older kid. I think there was 2 or 3 of them maybe. And what happened? Oh, they tricked my sister, who at the time was like maybe 7. I don't know how old she was. Maybe 5 or 7. If you ask my dad, he'll tell you she was fucking 4. Who knows how many sprinkles are on that cupcake. Either way. So what they did was they told my sister to go into our garage or whatever, and then they just closed the door and locked her in there. She was there in the dark, and she was screaming, she was crying. It was bad. It was it was bad as something like that can be to a young kid. And I remember because I was playing in the street, and I didn't really know that happened with whatever. All I know is that my dad came home and he still had his suit on. He would take the bus home from Manhattan. He had this suit on, and he was walking through the neighborhood. And he found, once she told him or whatever, my mom told him what happened. She found this. He found the kid, and he had him by his throat, and he was like strangling him, banging his head against the tree, And if I think about it, maybe by that time my dad was in his mid-30s, right? This kid is like maybe 10 or 12 or 13 or whatever, and my dad is strangling his kid, banging his head against the freaking tree. Yelling at him, go get your father, go get your father. And he meant it. So I remember that happened. So that was like, there's always neighborhood bullies. There's all of that stuff. I think it was just part of life. And yeah, so that was cool. But I had a great time, man. I had a great time, and so I had that part of my life, and which was like a John Hughes film, and then the other part of my life, which was, the rest of my family, they lived in the Bronx, and there was all of that. So, instead of John Hughes, it was Scarface and Freddy Krueger movies and Voltron in Spanish and all of that stuff. And that is a huge source of joy for me also, that I talk about all the time. My family's very close. We're very tight. We all talk smack about each other. We all maybe closetly judge each other, sometimes not in the closet, but we all love each other. I have plenty of family members who were, addicted to drugs, and some of them that were not, and some that were hardworking, and some of them that were not. But, that was my family. So it was just like there was my neighborhood and my family. And then my cousins would come upstate, and we'd be like, my parents would have these big parties in the backyard. My dad, he went with a few of my cousins down to the South Bronx to get this, big, huge system that he would have in the backyard for birthday parties. So at that time, what you had to do is, you'd have to go to Southern Boulevard in the South Bronx with somebody you knew, and then they'd bring you to the place. I mean, because he went with all my cousins, and they're big Puerto Rican dudes. And my dad had this station wagon. We used to call it the Puerto Rican Mobile. It was a brown Volvo station wagon with an I Love New York sticker on it, and the radio was a regular dial radio, and it was stuck on La Mega. So that's why we would call it the Puerto Rican Mobile. Either way, so he bought this huge stereo, and you had to tie the speakers on top of the car and all the equipment inside or whatever. However, they had to get. The point is, they had to go and get it out of there. And this is like a regular store that you're buying the stuff from, but you had to go with people that you knew and get it out of there before somebody robbed you. That's just what it was. They would just rob you. They'd wait for you down the block. They'd cut off your car, and then they just say, "Give me all your shit," And this is if this is 1986, 85, or whatever, around that time. There's no police presence really. Yeah, it was the OK Corral, but it was just what we knew. So either way, so I had a cousin Junito that used to come to my house all the time, and he is also my best friend. He's my godbrother. I think my mom is his godmom, his godmother. But he's my second cousin. His father is my first cousin. Either way, his father eventually succumbed to the virus and to addiction, and that's a whole nother thing. And his mom lived in the Smith houses down on the Lower East Side. But he would come to my house, and the Jewish kids would call him the kid from outer space, because he was so, just the way his mind worked. He was so creative and so, he had these crazy ideas, and we played these crazy games that didn't even make any sense, or whatever. He was just from a different world from them, because he had so little when he was growing up that his mind had to be more creative than them. Where my neighbor next door, his dad got him every freaking transformer that there was. My cousin didn't have that. So my cousin was he's a smart kid, man. I love him to this day. He's the best. He's up in Binghamton now. He's also sober. Thank the Lord. This disease took a lot from my family, and it took a lot from him. So, it was that dichotomy where you're just hey, some of my cousins are black, some of my cousins are brown, my neighborhood is white, and it was everything. And I went to school, and it was a very mixed crowd, and that was life. That was life. And one of the joys of that, so it was that's just what it was. It's just what, and it was incredible, and it was great, and I had the best time. And nobody was like instilling all of this stuff that they're doing to young kids now. Young kids they're way too grown. They don't know what it's like to play Johnny on the Pony. Yeah, Johnny on the Pony. Oh my God, we used to play hot peas and butter. Hot peas and butter. Hot peas and butter. That was you hide the belt, somebody finds it, and you go and you whip everybody else till you get to base. That was a fun game. You see a kid whipping another kid now. Some Karen is going to be like, hey, you stop that. But when I was a kid, that was the game, hot peas and butter. We played kickball on the street. Most of the kids in my neighborhood played Little League. Most of my cousins in the city, they played sports too, but for whatever, churches or PAL or this other stuff that they played. There was the Police Athletic League. They played for that stuff. They all played basketball, baseball. Baseball is big in my family, we're Puerto Rican. So baseball and boxing. That was it, that was it. But yeah, so we used to play all these games. We had so much fun, man. We were so free, Some of the best times in my life at that time was I used to go to summer camp every summer. And this is a very Jewish thing. And I don't mind because I'm a Jew. And, And I went to Hebrew school. I started going to Hebrew school when I was like in 3rd grade. And I went all the way to my bar mitzvah. By the time I got bar mitzvah, I was already on the way to the party. Well, by the time I got my bar mitzvah. So anyway, I went to Deer Kill Day Camp, best camp ever. And this was similar in some very vaguely close ways to like the Karate Kid story, where my peers at the day camp, a lot of them were just rich white kids. There was a small sprinkling of black and brown kids there, but very, very small. But, Jews send their kids to summer camp. And it wasn't sleepaway. It was just like regular day camp. So I met rich white kids from Manhattan, kids from all over Rockland County, from Pomona, from Suffern, definitely from New City, definitely. And the camp was it was expensive. It had to have been expensive, but I got to go for free because my mom, she was a public school teacher, and the deal was if my mom would be a counselor there, then the kids got to go for free. And don't quote me, I'll ask her, but I think it was the word forego or whatever. Anyway, she went without maybe half of her pay or something. Or she did it. She might have, I'm going to say that she didn't get paid, but I think that's like illegal. But she got very minimal pay to supplement the fact that me and my sister got to go there for free. And man, let me tell you, day camp was incredible. And there were all these other camps, man, and it was like Crips and Bloods, but for Rockland Jews. And it was great. There was like this other camp. There was Deer Mountain. Oh my God, we hated them for no reason. We're like, what? We're Deer Kill, and they're Deer Mountain. And then there was this other camp called Blue Rill, which, if I'm saying that right, I don't know. But Blue Rill, we were just like, they were like a little shabby. But Deer Mountain and Deer Kill, we were mortal enemies. And we would play softball against them, and they would, but we had the best time. And I met a lot of some people I'm still friends with and that I love so much with all my heart to this day at that day camp. And there were like, there were some psycho kids that were there too. There were a bunch of these metalhead kids who I really loved. They were cool. There was this girl, she was like super hot. Her name was Bonnie. And as hot as like a 14-year-old could be to a 7-year-old. Everyone was like, wow, Bonnie. Look at Bonnie's bongos. That's what they used to say, Bonnie's bongos. Then there was another kid who like kind of dressed up like a skinhead, and he was scary. But it was weird. There was this other kid from Manhattan called, his name was Jason Rockland, and I liked him. But shout out to everybody else from that time. It was the best time of my life, man. Best time. The summers, that's what I spent my summers doing that, man. And we would play softball. We would do swimming. I became like really, really good at ping pong. I wasn't that good at tennis. They had archery there. They had like this lake. And this lake, bro, it was gross. It was freaking gross. So you go boating on this lake, and you would go, and the lake was, I mean, it was like a man-made lake, I guess. It was disgusting. But there was like, I think, a turtle in there or something. And it was, you know, as a kid, man, dude, I don't know anybody that fell in the lake, but you definitely didn't want to fall in the lake. And the lake wasn't that big. You know, when you're a kid, everything is big, but that lake wasn't that big. So we would just go and do that. And you'd have to wear these life vests. And, dude, when that lake water would splash on you because you were rowing, like, it was gross. Yeah. There were no showers, I don't think there were showers. They had archery there. Bro, I was like a little shit, you know. But because of my neighborhood and because of my family, you know, I was like a little bit like hood, but not like hood. Like I wasn't like I didn't really become like hood until I got like older. But I was like, you know, I was there with, these kids had Umbro shorts on, and I didn't understand. I didn't have that. I had regular, you know, I had jean shorts. Oh my God, I had Patrick Ewing sneakers. You know, they were like, what are those? Those space boots? I had the Ewings, man. Bro, I had the all black, I had the black and white Ewings, and they were bomb. And I had those, and they were like, you know, I had like a flat top, you know, that my boy, who cut it? I think it was Andrew Von Cleek. He cut it. We were trying to be like his big brother Dave. So I just looked like a kid from Spring Valley, just a white kid from Spring Valley, and there weren't that many of those there. You know, everybody else, you know, including my sister, were wearing like, you know, what they were wearing. Those, oh my God, those like Cavaricci style shorts and like tie-dye everything and Champion sweatshirts when Champion was like bulletproof, you know. My parents would have to put my name on all of my shirts because I would just lose them everywhere. So I was one of those kids that had those iron-on names on the sleeve of my shirts. You know, I had like the Fall Guy T-shirt. I remember that show, The Fall Guy. Yeah. And that was it. You know, that was my life. It was really good. But I was like a little, dodgeball. My God, dude, dodgeball with those red balls. Dude, we would play them. We would play dodgeball outside in these cages, and you'd jump and you'd bang off the cage and you'd run and you know, one of my friends who I spoke with on Facebook maybe 10 years ago told me that everybody was like, it was at like a timeout, and I took the red ball and I just threw it at him and hit him in his face for no reason. I had to apologize, make amends to him right there. His name's BJ. Love that kid. And there was that. And, dude, we were like very innocent, man. It was just innocence. It was just life. It was just kids living, you know. And you did what you knew. You did what you knew. And I had a great time. You know, every week, each kid in summer camp had like a different crush or a different girlfriend. I remember I was so self-conscious. I have like, at that time, now I barely have any belly button, but at that time I had like a halfway in and halfway out belly button, and people used to make fun of it. So like an idiot, I used to walk around with my swimming shorts when I was outside the pool above my belly button because I didn't want people seeing it. That's how self-conscious I was as a kid. Had all those little crushes on all those girls there. think maybe I actually dated like 2 of them. No, maybe 3. I don't know. I don't remember them all. Whatever. They all matter when you're 8 or 10 or any of that stuff. But yeah, it was fun. It was a great time. Meanwhile, to tie that in, I guess, I met my current fiance, future wife, when I was that age. I was 5 years old, and I was in kindergarten in the Bronx because my mom, again, was a public school teacher, and she took me every day to her school. And it was in a rough area. Thinking back on it now, dude, there was like abandoned lots everywhere. There were drug dealers all over the street. The playground was just a big blacktop with a huge fence around it, so these animals in the neighborhood couldn't mess with us. And this guy used to come with like this push cart that sold these ices. They're called coquitos. And he had the coconut ones and the red ones, and he would come to the hole in the fence and you would buy them. And we didn't have enough toys in the classroom, so everybody would get a toy, to play with. When it was playtime inside, we'd get one of those. You had like 30 kids or something, and there was 10 toys. So whoever didn't have the toy that day, then you had to just play. So I would make me and my boys, this kid Christian and this other kid Rudy, we would make like Voltron figures out of paper, and we'd cut them out. We'd play with them. Either way, my boo Emily was in my class, and yeah, man, I was in love. Yeah, I was in love, man. That was my boo. And she reminds me that she was by the cubby hole where you get your jacket or whatever. And I just rolled up. I guess she said I put a note in her pocket. I don't know. But I remember kissing her on the cheek and like running away or something. Or just doing it. She's probably she tells a story like I'm like Don Juan. I don't ever remember being that graceful. Well, not at that age. But yeah, I met the love of my life. The last one was the first one. Yeah, I met her at that time too, in the 80s, 1985. Yeah, it was great. I remember going to her birthday party. I still have pictures with me and her at the birthday party. And we parted ways, just as like regular life. And, I think the other day she sent me a picture, because, Facebook now has these memories, and she ain't really on social media or whatever. She's just not, because she's freaking smart. But, where was it? I don't know. 10 years ago, she found me again. We didn't see each other by the time I was 5 until, I don't know, 10 years ago. She, what was her status? I'm scrolling through my phone so I can just find it quickly, because it made my day. It made my day. Where did it go? She wrote, it was like 10 years ago. She's like, oh my God, I found my kindergarten love on Facebook. Oh, here it is. There it is. This is her memory from January 4th, 2010. Wow, 12 years ago. It says, OMG, I found my love from kindergarten, LOL. FB is the shiznit. And here we are. She is, my relationship with her is the most impactful thing in my life. Aside from maybe getting sober. Well, they're all tied for first place. Getting sober, having my son, and my relationship with her and my other kids that she came with. But just meeting her, yeah. It's been some ride. It's been some ride. And I think, or I believe, because maybe it's rooted in that time of my life where it was just unadulterated, beautiful experiences that planted seeds that I guess just stayed. And I'm wondering now, and I'm hoping now, like, that there are young kids out there that are having the same good old time, like the Flintstones. Oh no, they say we'll have a gay old time. You can't even say that now. They can't even say we're gonna have a gay old time. But I hope that there are children out there now who are not their youth is like being robbed from them. They're stuck on their phones. They're stuck in their parents' divisive opinions and all this craziness. You know, it's crazy. I can't even imagine. I would not be who I was if I didn't come from that time. You know, I wouldn't. You know, and I love who I am today. And there was a lot of. It's been a windy road. I can say that. It's been a windy road. A lot of potholes. And I ran off the road so many times, head first into a tree. But my roots, man, are from a time that's freaking gold. Yeah. So, hopefully we allow these kids to have their own positive, loving earth. We don't take it from them. That's our job. That's our job, is to show them. Like, I'll end with this. I was talking to my boy Hot Rod Eddie, who hopefully I'll have on here soon. He's an incredible guy. I was like, dude, when I was a kid, you know, we were free. Even my parents were free. Like, compared to what they are now. Listen, dude, my dad would drive me in a car with no seatbelt on, or my uncle. Let's say my uncle, right? But my dad, same way. My dad, any men in my family, drive me in a car, no seatbelt on, flying around corners with there's no street lights. And, you know, up in the woods, there's one street light every 5 or 6 houses. At night, picking me up from somewhere or whatever. And I'm a little kid. There's no seatbelt. There's a cigarette. There's a beer between their legs. And if we take the turn too fast, they just put their arm over my chest to stop me from flying into the dashboard. And those are some of the best days of my life. You know. All right. Love you guys. Have a great day. Peace. We want to thank you all for joining us today. And please don't forget to like and subscribe on all podcast platforms, and find us on Facebook where you can become part of our family. We'll see you around.